I stood outside the high school gate for 3 hours. No umbrella, no chair, just me, and the sinking feeling that I didn't exist to my own grandson anymore. Inside, the graduation ceremony had already ended. Families were hugging, laughing, taking photos under the June sun. I could hear applause drifting through the open doors like a celebration I wasn't invited to. Then I saw him. Ethan Walker, my grandson, 17 now, taller than I remembered, wearing his graduation gown like it didn't belong to the boy I used to raise on my knees. Ethan, I called softly, stepping forward. He stopped, not because he was happy, because he saw me, and something in his face shut down instantly. He didn't walk toward me. He didn't smile. He stepped back, like I was dangerous, like I didn't belong anywhere near him. "Don't come closer," he said flatly. I froze. The words didn't make sense at first. Not from him. Not from the boy who used to fall asleep in my kitchen while I baked blueberry pie. "Ethan, it's me. Grandma." His jaw tightened. "I know who you are." That made it worse, because there was no confusion in his voice. Only certainty. Cold. Controlled. Final. Behind him, I saw her. Vanessa Walker. My daughter-in-law. She stood near the parking lot, watching us like she had been waiting for this exact moment. And when our eyes met, she didn't look surprised. She looked satisfied, like something had finally clicked into place. Ethan turned back to me. His voice dropped lower. "Why are you here?" The question hit harder than I expected. "I came for your graduation," I said quickly. I wouldn't miss it for anything. A short laugh escaped him, but there was no humor in it. "Of course you wouldn't." Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. This wasn't just rejection. This was accusation. I took another step forward anyway. "Ethan, what's going on? Did I do something wrong?" That was when his expression changed. Not anger. Something sharper. Something wounded. "You really don't know?" The way he said it made me feel like I should. Like I had already done something unforgivable and was pretending otherwise. From behind him, Vanessa's voice drifted softly. "Ethan, don't." Not loud. Just enough. Like she was stopping him from saying something she didn't want me to hear yet. He didn't look at her, but he obeyed anyway. That's when I knew. She had been inside his head long before today. Ethan stepped closer, but only to make sure I heard him clearly. "I told you not to come near me again." My breath caught. "Who told you that?" I asked, barely audible. His eyes flickered, just for a second, like something inside him hesitated. Then it hardened again. "That doesn't matter." But it did matter. Because I saw it. A crack. A delay. A doubt buried under something forced. And before I could speak again, he added one last sentence. Quiet. Controlled. Deadly calm. "You know what you did." Then he turned away and walked back to Vanessa, like I wasn't even standing there, like I had already been erased. I stayed frozen at the gate while the crowd moved around me. Some people glanced at me. Some avoided my eyes. No one stopped. No one asked if I was okay. Behind me, I heard Vanessa's voice again. Soft, almost gentle, but sharp enough to cut through everything. "He finally remembers." And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. My grandson wasn't avoiding me because he wanted to. He was avoiding me because someone had taught him to. And whatever truth he believed, it was not mine. It was constructed, and I was about to find out who built it. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was angry, but because my mind kept replaying his voice. "You know what you did." The sentence didn't fade. It stayed inside my chest like something heavy had been locked there. By morning, I called him. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Blocked. That last part one didn't want to accept at first. I even tried from my home phone. Then my old work phone. Then the emergency contact app one still kept for family. Every attempt ended the same way. Silence. Not just silence, but absence. Like I had been removed from his world completely. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone, waiting for it to explain itself. It didn't. Instead, something else happened. A notification popped up. Family group chat. Walker family. My finger paused before I opened it. There were messages there just yesterday. Now nothing. The group was gone. Deleted. Or worse, removed. My name wasn't just ignored. It was erased. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "Daniel." I called out loud, even though I knew he wouldn't answer. My son. Ethan's father. I dialed him immediately. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then voicemail. That was unusual. Daniel always picked up. Always. I tried again. Same result. A strange pressure started building behind my ribs. Something wasn't adding up anymore. I grabbed my keys and drove to his house. It was only 20 minutes away. But when I arrived, I stopped in my car. Because the driveway was empty. No truck. No lights. No sign of life inside. I walked up anyway and knocked. Once. Twice. Then louder. Nothing. A neighbor across the street opened her door slightly, watching me. She hesitated before speaking. They moved out yesterday. My throat tightened. Moved? Daniel didn't say anything. She looked uncomfortable, like she didn't want to continue. I think they said it was sudden. Sudden. That word didn't sit right. Nothing about this felt sudden. Everything felt coordinated, like pieces being removed one by one. I went back to my car and sat there for a long time, just staring at the empty house. Then I noticed something on my phone again. A new message. Unknown number. No name. Just text. Stop trying to contact him. My hands went cold instantly. I typed back. Who is this? No reply. Just 3 dots. Appearing, disappearing, appearing again. Then gone. Blocked. Again. This time, it wasn't just Ethan. Someone else was controlling the silence. That evening, I went through old photos. Ethan at 10, sitting on my lap with frosting on his face. Ethan at 12, holding my hand at the park. Ethan at 14, smiling in my kitchen like he belonged there. All of it felt like evidence now. Evidence of a life that was being rewritten in real time. And then I saw something that made my breath stop. One of the photos had changed. It was the same picture of Ethan and me at his school science fair. But I wasn't in it anymore. The space next to him was blurred, like I had never stood there at all. I zoomed in. My fingers shook. It wasn't just edited. It was intentionally removed. Someone had gone back and rewritten the memory. My phone rang suddenly. I almost dropped it. Unknown number again. I answered. Silence. Then a breath. A young voice. Ethan. But not the Ethan I remembered. This is your last warning. My heart stopped. Ethan, it's Grandma. Please listen. His voice cut in instantly. Colder than before. You are not my grandma. Then the line went dead. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just rejection. Someone had convinced my grandson that I had never deserved that name at all. And I had no idea what story he had been told instead. The next morning, I stopped pretending this was just confusion. Because confusion doesn't delete phone numbers. Confusion doesn't erase family group chats. And confusion does not make a teenage boy look at his own grandmother like she's a stranger who committed a crime. Something had been done to him. Deliberately. I drove again. This time, I didn't go to Daniel's house. I went to Ethan's school, Westbridge High School, the same place I used to pick him up every Friday for tutoring when he was younger. The parking lot looked normal. Too normal. Students laughing. Parents waiting. Life continuing like nothing was broken. But I knew something was broken. I waited near the side entrance until school let out early dismissal. Then I saw him. Ethan walked out alone. No friends. No phone in hand. Just fast steps, like he wanted to disappear into the crowd. Ethan, I called. He froze instantly. Not turning. Just stopping like my voice physically hit him. Then slowly he turned his head. And I saw it again. That look. Distance. Fear. Control. You're here again, he said flatly. I needed to see you. I replied quickly. Please. Just listen to me for 1 minute. He stepped back immediately. No one word. Final. Sharp enough to cut. Students passed by us, glancing, sensing tension, but not stopping. I lowered my voice. Someone is telling you things about me that aren't true. His jaw tightened. You always say that. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because it wasn't anger. It was repetition. Like he had heard this argument before. From someone else. Ethan, I said carefully. What exactly do you think I did? He hesitated. Just for a second. That hesitation mattered. Then he said it. You abandoned me. The words didn't make sense. My chest tightened. What? His voice grew sharper. When I needed you, you left. That's what she said. She. That one word changed everything. Who is she? I asked immediately. But he shook his head. Like saying her name was forbidden. You don't get to ask questions anymore. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out his phone, opened something, and held it toward me. A photo. It was me, standing in a hospital hallway, looking cold, unfamiliar. Next to me was Ethan's younger self, crying. The caption under it made my stomach drop. She left him the day he needed her most. I staggered slightly. That never happened, I whispered. Ethan didn't react, because in his mind it had. I don't know who edited that, I said quickly, but this is not real. His eyes darkened. You always say that too. Then he lowered his phone. and added something worse. She showed me everything. My heart stopped. She? Yes, he said. She told me why you can't be trusted. I stepped closer instinctively, but he stepped back again, like I carried something contagious. Ethan, listen to me. Someone is manipulating you. His voice dropped. Cold again. She wouldn't lie to me. That sentence landed like a final verdict, because it meant someone had replaced me, not just in his memory, but in his trust. And before I could respond, he added one last line. You don't belong in my life anymore. Then he turned and walked away. But this time, I noticed something different. He wasn't walking alone. Across the street, near a black SUV, I saw her. Vanessa, watching, waiting. And when she saw me looking, she didn't hide. She smiled. Not warmly, not kindly, but like someone watching a plan finally reach its correct outcome. And in that moment, I understood something terrifying. Ethan didn't just believe a lie. Someone was actively making sure he never stopped believing it. After I left the school that day, I didn't go home. I couldn't, because home felt like another place where something had already been rewritten without my permission. Instead, I drove aimlessly for almost an hour until I ended up parked near the old neighborhood library Ethan used to love when he was younger. He used to sit there for hours. Quiet boy, always reading, always asking questions. That version of him felt like another lifetime now. And that was when it hit me. This wasn't just rejection. This was reconstruction. Someone hadn't just turned him against me. They had rebuilt his entire memory of me. Piece by piece. I went inside the library. The air smelled like dust and paper. Familiar. Safe. For a moment, I almost forgot everything that had happened. Almost. Then I asked the librarian for old school event records. Anything tied to Ethan Walker. She hesitated. That would have been requested already, she said. My stomach tightened. By who? She checked the system. Paused. Then looked at me differently. A Mrs. Vanessa Walker. She accessed archived materials last year. Last year. That was long before Ethan stopped visiting me. Long before the phone calls stopped. Long before I even noticed the distance growing. My hands went cold. What exactly did she request? I asked. The librarian scrolled. Then stopped. I'm sorry, but it includes school reports, counseling notes, and incident summaries. Incident summaries. The word didn't sit right. I asked her to print what she could. She hesitated again, then handed me a small file. Inside were scanned documents. And the first page made my chest tighten instantly. Behavioral Concern Report. Ethan Walker, age 15. Below it, my name. Margaret Collins. And a note. Subject shows emotional instability when visiting maternal figure. Recommendation, limit contact. I almost dropped the paper. This is wrong, I whispered. This is completely wrong. But it wasn't just one page. There were more. Emails between Vanessa and a school counselor. Words like concerned grandmother influence, emotional manipulation risk, asterisk, controlled visitation recommended. Asterisk, each line felt like a quiet accusation. Not loud, not dramatic. Worse, clinical, prepared, official. I stepped back from the counter. My breathing felt shallow, because now I understood something terrifying. This wasn't just family conflict. This had been documented, filed, systematized, approved. Someone had built a case against me, and Ethan had grown up inside it. I left the library holding the folder like it might burn through my hands. Back in my car, I opened it again. One more page caught my attention. A signed statement. From Ethan, age 15. I do not feel safe when visiting my grandmother. I stared at it for a long time, because I knew that wasn't his voice. Not really. That was coach language. Adult language. Planted language. And beneath it, barely visible in the metadata footer, was something worse. Submission initiated from Vanessa Walker's account. My phone rang suddenly. I almost dropped it. Unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then her voice. Vanessa. Calm. Controlled. Like she had been expecting me to find all of this. You've been digging, she said softly. My grip tightened. What did you do to him? I asked. A pause. Then she laughed lightly. Not amused. Just certain. I protected him. You isolated him from me. I snapped. Another pause. Then her voice changed. Colder now. No, Margaret. I corrected a mistake that started long before I arrived. My throat tightened. That boy loved me. A soft sigh. You loved the version of him that believed you. The line went quiet. Then she added the final blow. And now he knows better. The call ended. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the windshield. Not crying, not moving, just realizing. This wasn't about misunderstanding anymore. This was about ownership, of memory, of identity, of my own grandson's truth. And Vanessa had already decided which version of me would survive in his mind, and which one would not. After I hung up the call with Vanessa, I didn't move for a long time. The phone was still in my hand. Warm, too real, like it had just delivered something irreversible into my life. I corrected a mistake. Her voice kept replaying. Calm, controlled, certain, not the voice of someone defending herself. The voice of someone who believed she had already won. That night, I went back home, but I didn't feel like I was returning anywhere familiar. Every room felt slightly wrong, like someone had walked through my life and adjusted things by a few degrees. Small enough that you wouldn't notice at first, but enough that nothing felt the same anymore. I opened a drawer in my living room. Old photos. Ethan at 7. Ethan at 10. Ethan hugging me after his school play. I stared at them for a long time. And then something struck me. If Vanessa could alter records, if she could manipulate school reports, then what about the photos? My hands tightened. I pulled out my laptop and started checking the metadata of old digital albums I had saved years ago. One by one, photo after photo. Most looked normal, until I found it. The school fair picture again. The one Ethan had shown me. Except this time, I didn't rely on memory. I checked the file data, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Modified date, last year. Not taken. Altered. Someone had edited it. Not casually. Not poorly. Professionally. I leaned back in my chair, my breath uneven. So it wasn't just school records. It wasn't just messages. It was everything. They were rewriting the entire visual history of my relationship with Ethan. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message. Unknown number. But I already knew who it was. Stop trying to recover what's been corrected. My fingers trembled. I typed back immediately. You are destroying his real memories. 3 dots appeared. Vanessa again. Typing. Then stopping. Typing again. Finally, her reply came. I removed confusion. Not truth. I felt something rise in my chest. Anger. Sharp and cold. Truth doesn't need editing, I wrote back. This time, the response came instantly. It does when it's dangerous. Dangerous. That word stayed with me longer than the rest, because it implied something I hadn't fully considered yet. This wasn't just about Ethan believing lies. It was about why Vanessa needed him to believe them. I stood up suddenly, grabbed my coat, and drove. Not to Ethan, not to Daniel, but to the one place I hadn't been in years. The county records office. If she built a story, there had to be a beginning, and I needed to find out what she was hiding before. That story became permanent. When I arrived, the building was almost empty. Late afternoon. Quiet halls. Too quiet. I requested archive guardianship and custody-related filings under the Walker family name. The clerk looked at me carefully. Your family? She asked. Yes, I said. A pause. Then she printed something. A single folder. Thin, but heavy in meaning. When I opened it, I saw it. A sealed recommendation report. Signed by a social worker. Attached to Vanessa Walker's request. And one sentence highlighted in red. Recommend primary emotional custody influence be shifted away from paternal grandmother due to perceived psychological instability narrative introduced by caregiver. My vision blurred slightly. Narrative introduced. Not behavior. Not action. Narrative. Someone didn't just accuse me. They constructed a version of me that officials were told to believe. And then I saw the attachment list. School counselors. Medical consultations. Behavioral summaries. All routed through Vanessa. All aligned. All pointing in one direction. Away from me. My hands closed around the folder tightly. Because now I understood the shape of what I was facing. This wasn't a lie told once. It was a system. A carefully built structure. And Ethan had been growing up inside it his entire teenage life. When I left the building, the sun was already low. Long shadows on the parking lot. I stood there for a moment, breathing slowly, trying to decide what came next. And then my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered immediately. But this time, it wasn't Vanessa. It was Ethan. His voice was different. Not cold. Not controlled. Unsteady. Confused. Why do they keep telling me I should be afraid of you? He asked. And for the first time since this began, I realized something had started to crack. Ethan's voice kept replaying in my mind long after the call ended. Why do they keep telling me I should be afraid of you? Not anger. Not accusation. Confusion. That was the first crack I had heard in his voice since this nightmare began. And Vanessa knew it too. Because within minutes of that call, everything changed again. My phone started ringing nonstop. Unknown numbers. Blocked. Numbers. Then silence again. Like someone was testing how quickly I could be cut off. But this time, I didn't stop at silence. I started digging deeper. If Ethan was confused, it meant Vanessa's control wasn't perfect anymore. And imperfect control always leaves traces. I returned to the folder from the records office. Spread everything across my kitchen table. Pages. Reports. Emails. Signed statements. And then I noticed something I had missed before. A pattern. Every document about me started appearing only after Vanessa entered the family. Not before. Not during Ethan's early childhood. Only after. Which meant something simple but terrifying. This version of me was constructed later. Not remembered. Built. I picked up one of the printed counselor notes again. The phrasing stood out now. Subject displays emotional unpredictability when exposed to grandmother figure. Subject. Not Ethan. Me. They weren't describing behavior. They were labeling identity. My hands tightened around the paper. Then my phone buzzed again. But this time, it wasn't Vanessa. It was Ethan. I answered immediately. His breathing was uneven. Low. Careful. Like he was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. I don't understand what's happening, he said quietly. They showed me more things today. My chest tightened. Who is they? I asked. A pause. Then, Mom said you tried to take me away from her when I was younger. My stomach dropped. That's not true, I said immediately. Ethan, I would never. I don't know what's true anymore, he interrupted. His voice broke slightly on the last word. That small crack destroyed me more than anything else. Because this wasn't hatred. This was collapse. A teenager standing between two versions of reality and losing his footing. I softened my voice immediately. Ethan, listen to me. Just one thing. Look at anything that came directly from me. Old messages. Old photos. Anything before she started interfering. Silence. Then, she says you would say that. Of course she did. She had predicted every escape route. Every doubt. Every attempt at truth. I closed my eyes for a moment. Then I made a decision. Where are you right now? I asked. A pause. Longer this time. I can't tell you that. That answer told me everything. He was already being watched. Controlled. Or afraid. Maybe both. Before I could respond, I heard another voice faintly in the background. Vanessa. Soft. Close. Ethan, hang up. The line stayed open for one more second. Then Ethan whispered something I barely caught. I wish I remembered you differently. And then the call ended. My hand stayed frozen on the phone. Because that sentence didn't sound like rejection anymore. It sounded like loss. That night, I didn't sleep again. Instead, I went back to the school reports. And that's when I found it. A sealed psychological evaluation request. Not from a school counselor. From a private clinic. Requested by Vanessa Walker. Dated 6 months after she married Daniel. Attached was a note. Assessment required due to external influence concerns involving maternal grandmother. External influence. I leaned closer. And beneath it, another line. Handwritten. Not official, but included in the file. If necessary, recommend memory recontextualization therapy for adolescent stability. My breath stopped. Memory recontextualization. They didn't just want Ethan to believe something different. They wanted him to feel like it had always been true. And suddenly, everything made sense. The confusion. The edited photos. The silence. The fear in his voice. This wasn't just manipulation. It was replacement of reality itself. And as I sat there in the dim light of my kitchen, I realized something worse. Ethan wasn't just being turned against me. He was being prepared to forget I ever mattered at all. Ethan didn't call again that night. But I already knew silence was no longer peace. It was preparation. Because every time Vanessa went quiet, something worse followed. And I was right. The next morning, I received an email. No sender name. Just a clinic header I recognized from the documents. Westbridge Behavioral Care Center. The subject line made my blood turn cold. Ethan Walker, scheduled evaluation update. Attached was a confirmation notice. Psychological reassessment. Requested by Vanessa Walker. Consent. Guardian approved. I stared at those words for a long time. Guardian approved. Not Ethan. Not Daniel. Vanessa. She had formalized control over him. Legally. Clinically. Completely. And now I understood why Ethan sounded like he was slipping further away each time I reached him. He wasn't just being influenced anymore. He was being processed. I grabbed my keys immediately. This time, I wasn't going to wait. I drove straight to the clinic listed in the email. Westbridge Behavioral Care Center sat on the edge of town, surrounded by tall trees and gated silence. Everything about it felt too clean, too controlled. I walked in with the printed email in my hand. The receptionist looked at me carefully. "I need to see Ethan Walker," I said. Her expression changed instantly. "I'm sorry, but you're not listed as an approved contact. I'm his grandmother. That's not on his file." That sentence hit harder than I expected. Not restricted. Not limited. Not even review required. Just erased again. I leaned forward. "Please. There's been a misunderstanding. His consent was manipulated." She hesitated. That hesitation mattered, because it meant she had seen this before. "I can call a supervisor," she said finally. I waited. Minutes passed. Then a man in a suit came out. Clinical tone. Controlled voice. "Mrs. Collins, we've reviewed the documentation. Everything is in order." "No," I said immediately. "It's not. He doesn't understand what he signed." The man opened a folder, turned it toward me. Inside was Ethan's signature. Again, but this time with a note beneath it. "I understand I do not wish to maintain contact with Margaret Collins." My vision blurred for a second. "That's not his wording," I said sharply. "That's not how he speaks." The man didn't react. "Teenagers often struggle to express emotional boundaries," he replied calmly. "No emotion, just procedure." That's when I realized something worse. They didn't need Ethan to agree. They just needed him to comply. And words could be edited later. Just like photos. Just like reports. Just like memory. My phone rang suddenly. I stepped outside immediately. Unknown number. I answered. "Ethan." But this time, his voice was different again. Not confused. Not broken. Empty. "They said you came here," he said. I froze. "Ethan, please listen. I signed the papers." "No, you didn't understand them." A pause. Then his voice sharpened slightly. "She said you would try to stop this." Of course she did. Vanessa had already predicted me. Already accounted for me. Already written my reaction into his script. "Ethan," I said carefully, lowering my voice. "Look at me. Just me. Not what she says. Not what they show you. Just what you remember." Silence. Long. Then, "I don't remember you the way you say I should." That sentence broke something inside me. Because it wasn't hatred. It was absence. A gap where memory should have been. And before I could respond, I heard her voice in the background again. Close. Clear. "Vanessa. Ethan, come back inside." A pause. Then Ethan spoke one last time. Soft. Almost apologetic. "I think I need to stop trying to figure this out." Then the line went dead. I stood there outside the clinic for a long time. The wind felt colder than it should have. Because now I understood the final stage of what Vanessa was doing. She wasn't just convincing him I was dangerous. She was teaching him that forgetting me was easier than remembering the truth. And inside that building, my grandson was being trained not to hate me, but to let me disappear completely. I didn't go back to the clinic after that call, because I already knew what the answer would be. Everything now had been sealed. Papers, signatures, systems, reports, permissions. They didn't need to block me anymore. They just needed to make me irrelevant. That night, I sat in my living room without turning on the lights. Just the quiet hum of the refrigerator. And the weight of everything I had just lost without physically losing anything at all. Ethan wasn't gone. He was still alive. Still walking. Still speaking. But not to me. And somehow, that felt worse than death. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something inside me said, "This time is different." I picked up. A pause. Then, "Grandma, Ethan." But his voice was not empty this time. It was trembling. I saw something. My heart tightened immediately. "What did you see?" A breath on the other end. Shaky. Conflicted. I went through my old storage box from when I was a kid. I sat up slowly. Vanessa said I would find proof, but I found something else. Silence. Then his voice cracked slightly. "I found drawings. Letters. School notes. All with your name." My chest tightened. "They were all mine," he continued. "Not hers. Not anyone else's." A pause. I remembered. "You were always there." My hand covered my mouth instinctively. Because I knew what was happening. The cracks were opening. Not because someone told him, but because something inside him refused to stay erased. "Ethan," I said softly, "listen to me carefully. You were never abandoned. You were never unsafe with me. I know, he whispered. That single response broke something open inside me. For the first time, he didn't argue. But it wasn't over. I could hear movement in the background. A door closing. A distant voice calling his name. Vanessa. He lowered his voice quickly. She's here. I shouldn't be talking. My chest tightened. Ethan, don't hang up. Just listen. I can't, he whispered urgently. She'll know. A pause. Then, softer. But I remember more now. That sentence changed everything. Because memory, once it returns, doesn't stay quiet. It fights back. A sharp sound in the background. Footsteps. Closer now. Vanessa's voice, faint but clear. Ethan. Put the phone down. His breathing became uneven. Grandma. I think she lied to me. My throat tightened. She didn't protect me. He continued, voice breaking slightly. She controlled everything I saw. A long silence. Then, a soft click. Not the call ending. A switch. Like the phone was taken from his hand. Then Vanessa's voice came through. Come again. But colder now. This is exactly why contact was restricted. I froze. Let him go, I said immediately. A short laugh. Not amused. Controlled. You still don't understand, do you? My grip tightened. Understand what? A pause. Then her voice dropped lower. You were never supposed to be the final version of his past. Silence. That sentence didn't make sense at first. Then it did. She wasn't trying to remove me from Ethan's life. She was replacing me. In it. And I wasn't part of the design. I was an error. Ethan is not yours to rewrite, I said sharply. Another pause. Then Vanessa spoke slowly. He already chose what feels safer. Click. The line ended. I sat there for a long time, staring into the dark room. But something was different now. Because for the first time in days, I had heard Ethan remember me. Even for a moment. And that meant something Vanessa couldn't fully control, yet still existed inside him. Truth doesn't disappear. It gets buried. And buried things always find air eventually. I stood up slowly and looked at the old photos again. Not as evidence of what I lost, but as proof of what still existed beneath everything she tried to erase. And I understood, finally, what I had to do next. Not to fight Vanessa. Not to argue with systems or papers. But to reach Ethan before silence became his only reality. Because he was not gone. He was still there. Somewhere inside the story she tried to finish for him. And I was not going to let her write the ending alone.